Movie night tonight. Let us see here. All right. Published 30%, 60%, 60%. And I believe we're live. We're going to go a little early as usual just to discuss some of the backstory and some other things as we wait for 7:30 to kind of tear into this movie. And good evening, everybody. It's the 28th of September, 2020, and welcome to all of you to another classic movie night. This will be the last feature that I will be picking for new movie night for quite a while here. And we're going to see if this works for Monday nights on the channel. And I think we enjoyed the first one. Had pretty good viewership. I think we had over, hey Kitten Cat, I think we had over almost 700 views on the first effort. Hi Craig, how you doing? The fires, the winds have died down, so the smoke, it's not as smelly. Hey Jay Money, how are you? Good to see you. And if I'm not smelling it, that means that the winds are starting to shift, and that's a good thing. But it's on the eastern perimeter of the city of Santa Rosa. They've evacuated 25,000 people so far, so we'll just see how it goes with an abundance of caution. Hi, Misty, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. So we're experimenting here to see if we can have a movie night. I thought just to kick things off, hi Gail, I would pick the first two movies. The first one was rather simplistic because I could find a public domain copy. The Passion of Joan of Arc 1928 version, hi Kimberly, is a much more difficult proposition because Turner Classic Movies, I think it was Turner, no, maybe it was, yeah, Turner Classic Movies paid money to have a score written for this film and to have English subtitles put on it, and it did not go into the public domain. People tried to put it up and they got struck down by copyright because Turner Classic Movies had fundamentally changed the movie and pulled it out of the public domain, at least in terms of putting an English version. Hi Patricia, how are you? So late today, this afternoon, I finally stumbled across a version that uses I think Notre Dame University. They had their choral, they had half-size symphony orchestra there, and they scored along with the music, along with the film with English subtitles. Although I did not appreciate, if you use that version, yes, I like the Marx Brothers very much. If you use that version today, they would cut away to feature parts of the choir, or normally you would just focus on they set up a huge screen in the auditorium, like 30 feet by 40 feet by 40 feet, and they just projected that movie onto that and scored that along with the English language, the subtitles at the bottom. But the camera operator kept, because the people worked hard, they scored their own music, and that's the way a lot of classic silent movies were presented at that time. That they would have an orchestra that would be scored, would be part of the theater, and would be there for all of the shows. There really was no such thing as recorded music at that time. I mean, it was still kind of in its infancy with the Edison phones and all that. So with a lot of silent movies, you would have various versions of orchestration that people would come up with to accompany that. So it makes it exceedingly difficult. The first version I had up last week was in Swedish, and we all know the basic framework of what the story is of Joan of Arc in the 1400s in France. But still, it's nice to have there's not a lot of dialogue in this movie, but it's nice to have the flow of what's going on. So I wish I found this version last week. But I won't have to worry about it again because we'll be picking a movie that you guys want to review that is a classic movie for next week. So I thought I would come on a little early today just to discuss some of the backstory of Joan of Arc and separate some of the fact of fiction. Hi, Miss Pudwina. It's an extraordinary individual that is illiterate, a peasant, no education to speak of at all, that eventually convinces the King of France, Charles, I guess it was Charles the 12th or something like that, to lead troops into battle at the age of 18 and being female, okay? Although cross-dressed as a male, as a female to lead troops into battle and win a major battle called the Battle of Orleans in France that resulted in bringing the English attempt to overthrow the kingship of France, throwing a wrench in the monkey works. And unfortunately, as she went on to a later battle, a year later, she was captured. She fell off of her horse outside of the gates were being stormed, and she was captured by the Burgundy troops that were loyalists to England and the English soldiers there, and she was put on trial. But you can, yeah, the Maid of New Orleans. But can you imagine at age 18 and being female to that you're going to lead troops into battle? And it shows you the power that the Catholic Church had over royalty and everything at that time, that you would even get the king's ear because you had voices in your head. Okay, and that's what got the attention of the king. And once you'd won that major battle, you were like gold, and you could do whatever you want. So it was almost unheard of. Okay, and of course the threat is she was subsequently captured, and they had to put her on trial because if you're English and you're fighting the 100-Year Wars with France and you've been defeated in a major battle by this thorn in the side, and it's a at this time it's a 19-year-old woman. Oh man, this doesn't go down well in the press. You know what I'm saying? This has got some barbs on this thing that don't feel too comfortable if you're the English. So they decided to use, hi G, they decided to use the heretic card and proceed to insist that, well, if you were able to pull off this kind of victory over a far superior nation of England, then obviously you were infested with the devil and had the power of the devil in you, because you on your own devices, even with voices in your head, there is no way that you would be able to defeat the British on the field of battle. So therefore you must be of the devil. So they proceeded to put her on trial. Now what's extraordinary about the trial at that time is how very well documented the trial was. And the director, yeah, hey Craig, no problem. No problem. Putting her on trial, the director of the movie, Carl Dreyer, a very renowned Danish director. And there were all kinds of, we'll get to the backstory when everybody gets here at 7:30. But putting that, yeah, kitten cat, you get meows in your head. But it was there's the historical document that's there in great detail, the trials, because the English were very noted for being very meticulous about procedure, proper procedure, and being able to prove at a later date that we dotted the I's and we crossed the T's, and we did everything right that we were supposed to do. So, having been brought in and captured, they decided to bring the church in to be the agent that would try her, to bring some of the Catholic officials in, and at first they wanted to get the story. Does God converse to you? And yes, I've got voices in my head. And as the movie proceeds, with the threat of torture, she agreed that it was like voices in her head, and she must have been possessed by the devil. What's up, Alan Gold? She must have been possessed by the devil, but her court sentence was a life imprisonment. Okay, so she was not immediately condemned to death. She had a life in prison sentence, but within a week she recanted because she felt like she turned her back on God. And she began to wear male clothing again. Remember, they forced her to wear female clothing during her trial and captivity period, but she claimed that the English guards were sexually assaulting her when she had female, dressed as female. So they appeared one day, came down, and she was dressed back in the male garb again. And it's like, no, I got voices in my head. God told me to do this. And they said, okay, and just immediately took her out on May 30th, I think 1429 or something, 1431. I believe 1431 executed her burnt her at the stake, which is an interesting, if not horrific, proposition to die at the stake. Because, well, if you're lucky, you die of smoke inhalation. Okay, that's the main thing, is the smoke inhalation just overcomes you and the lack of oxygen, and you pass out. But few people know that if you were believed to have been possessed by witches or demons, they had to thoroughly burn your body. In other words, it wasn't enough to just pull down a charred body. They had to relight, they had to build additional fires, relight what was left after the first burning, do a second burning, and then build another funeral pyre and take what was left after that second burning and burn that a third time, and then dispose of the what was left in the river Seine. A very thorough job. And on those occasions, they would also throw a dead black cat into the fire too, believing that it was the devil's mate there to go into the fire with him. So it was very, hey Jay, it was a very horrific thing to have witnessed that for the third time. Interestingly, also 40 years later, the Hundred Years' Wars went on for another 22 years between England and France. They were at war for 100 years. And finally, the French succeeded in giving the English the royal boot from France and a full restoration of the king. And they redid the trial, and she was exonerated fully exonerated at that trial. And it was admitted because you had French collaborators that worked for the English to put this dummy trial together and try her. So it was a way for the French to officially apologize for what they did. And then, of course, in 1920, she was canonized a saint. So that's kind of a little bit of the backstab. Maybe she was a witch. It's hard to say. We think of England as a great country, but England was also very hated around that particular time. They were a seafaring nation. They always had their snoot into other affairs of other countries, whether it was Spain and France was kind of the same way. So everybody wanted God to be on their side, whether it was the Spanish that were coming to the New World that always had crucifixes on the front of their ships, their little dinghies when they landed on shore. They always wanted to feel like they were marching with God. So the British, of course, felt like they were marching with God too. So you can't have two armies that are opposing each other that are both marching with God, right? It cancels out, right? How you doing, Genevieve? Hi, Lip Whiskers. So it is possible, but in the eyes of the Catholic Church and canonization and all that she became recognized as a saint and became the patron saint of France at that particular time. But does it not blow you away that at the age of 18, that someone would be entrusted with the leadership of an army with no military background, no intellectual skills, a peasant? Basically, they called her a dumb peasant girl, that would be put in charge of an army and lead them to initial victory in Orleans, a huge battle. What's up, Cupcake? How you doing, sweetie? Let's see. What did Kit and Kat say? Yeah, a cat, and that's what they would do in those days. because they tried to find autopsy and find the bones, and they thought they found the remains. They found the remains of a cat and things, and then there were so many people burned at the stake over the period that it was really hard to tell whether it was in fact her, because they do such a thorough job of doing that. Yeah, we got the fires again here. Yep. Yeah, you'll pass on being a saint, right? So, um, as we're moving up our numbers here, let me reiterate and apologize again that I could not find an English language subtitled version of this movie. And only about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock today, I stumbled across Notre Dame University had a presentation of this movie with an orchestra and a choir, and they had a big screen, and they would have the subtitles below it. And the direction was terrible on the in in theater camera work was terrible, because if you're going to feature the movie and then replay it later so people on YouTube or other Vimeo or other sites can enjoy it, you want to focus on the screen and not do all these tearaway close-ups of the choir and the orchestra and things like that. I know they work hard, they do that, but a wide-angle shot would not have been a killer, because you would have seen the orchestra, you would have seen the chorus up there on the second level. You would have seen it all. You would have seen it all, right? Most psychologists agree she had schizophrenia. We're discussing The Passion of Joan of Arc, the very classic 1928 movie. And Bill said if you hit closed caption on the screen, you could select English. That's good. You paid for it with, okay, Genevieve, cool. Some people paid up for the movie. Now, according to critics, this is considered one of the top 10 movies of all time for various reasons, but because it broke so much new ground. Interestingly enough, also, not surprisingly, it was banned in England from being shown. You couldn't show the movie in England. It was also heavily censored in other countries. And they lost copies of the original copies of the movie. And thank God they were able to find one in a vault in Norway or something of the original director's cut of the movie. But a lot of censors and a lot of places were anti-Catholic, and they thought that the message sent was, that God is on the side of the holy King of France, and England will be beaten down, etc., etc. And they ran into some of that around the world. Plus the the ending was very shocking to people in the movie theater. A lot of people complained bitterly about the movie because they did not use imagery of the burning at the stake and had a progressive burning as the body got charred. And then localized riot broke out as the French citizens became enraged that, yeah, you burned a saint. And the truncheons started to come out. That's those spike balls that they start swinging, and people start to get their skulls crushed in. It was a hell of an ending of that movie. And a lot of censors and a lot of people complained bitterly about how that movie, the violence at the end of it, and some of the, the degrading of her throughout that movie. So, what did you guys, for those of you who saw it, did you have any thoughts on the storyline or the actress? Because the whole thing revolved around her, and I'll tell a few interesting tidbits, but did you have any feeling about the way that she portrayed this role and the degradation that she underwent throughout this movie? Because a lot of people were shocked by that they would actually put this into a movie. Did anybody? Hi, Laura. Yeah, as Cupcake said, hi, Karina, they usually ban to censor so people can't form new opinions. Also, censorship is a bitter blow to directorial and artistic composition, because the person that does the censoring and re-editing of the movie there's no guarantee that they have any artistic ability at all. They just see a scene come along. Okay, we don't need all that burn time on the steak. Okay, let's no, we don't need everybody being hit with truncheons and the little boy over the old lady on the ground. That's a horrible image. And we're just going to cut that out. And you end up with a chopped up movie. And so many directors, Carl Dreyer was one that was just horrified with what the censors did to the movie, to the point it's like he said it's senseless even to be creative in a movie. Becky says the use of close up shots continues to be used today. Very true. This is the first, everything prior to this movie, whether it was overseas or whether it was in Hollywood, was all shot at like 50 millimeter, 25 to 50 millimeter lenses, which means that you got very wide. Think of a 35 millimeter camera. You have a very wide, pretty damn wide angle on that, and everything was shot at a distance, whether it was Laurel and Hardy or Birth of a Nation or any of the great Ten Commandments, any of those things. They would always build large sets and have the camera with as wide angle using Cook optic lenses on it to have as wide an angle as possible. There wasn't really such a thing as a close-up until this movie came along. So that's a good point, Becky. Continues to be used today. The degrading of her. They had faces on them. Exactly. And people went nuts because they weren't used to seeing it. And they complained also that they discovered they thought about it and they asked, did anybody wear makeup in this movie? And the answer was no. And all the close-ups, if you notice, all the figures of authority were either shot with up angles at them, and almost every shot of Joan of Arc was a down angle on her in a subservient position. Whether she was trying to get communion, they're interrogating, she's always looking like this and looking up. That was the first use of those camera angles to set that. And when the English troops are marching out towards the gate to confront the citizens of the French out there, they have down angle shots, also up angle shots. They'd never had them before in movies. But Dreyer wanted you to see the warts and the close-up faces of these accusers and these cardinals and bishops and people that were holding these trials. And he purposely did the lighting so that they looked grotesque, and her lighting would be sort of angelic on her. See, I didn't get to see it, but it's very visually artistic. Yeah, it portrayed the misogyny very strongly. I felt depressed just watching it. It was terrible. Yeah, truncheonables, exactly. Emotional infection. People connect with her suffering. It was so he really wanted to break new ground by not using makeup, because they wouldn't have really had makeup at that period of time. And he wanted to be as true to the script as possible. But he was the first one that didn't move the camera, but he moved the position of the camera. Today we have, when they take a motion picture camera, it'll be on a dolly and they'll move around the whole scene if two people are talking at a table or something. That was unknown at that time. But this was the first. All movies before had just been shot straight on at eye level or table level, and this was the first time that they'd actually positioned the camera high, above, below, looking up. So it kind of freaked people out when they were watching the movie. They're like, oh, man, this guy's got a big hairy wart on his side. Ooh, and it made the movie so much more dramatic. Bill says, I like when the priest told Joan that the church would comfort her. When Joan grabbed his hand, the priest recoiled. She was in softer lighting throughout the movie. What's interesting, she was illiterate, and they tried that. They did the good. They had the good cop, bad cop thing for 600 years almost now. Okay, just sign it. It'll be okay. The church will welcome you back, a lost lamb with open arms. And then all of a sudden there'd be another guy that would come down and with a really stern face and with the sign it and I mean, and then spinning the big rack with all the pointed pins on it, spinning that, and you know she passes out when she sees that object of torture, because they would definitely torture. Who was 36? Yeah, she was 35 years old. Renee Falconetti just finished the movie, very moving. And I apologize, Nocturnal, for those of you who paid for it. You had a good experience. For those of you who are cheap like me, you either watched the Swedish subtitles and tried to get English subtitles, or you took the mid afternoon when I found today and put it up. So, yeah, playing a 19-year-old was impressive. So that use of close-ups had a huge impact on the audience, and it had an even bigger impact on Hollywood, because after that point in time, Hollywood began to search out beauty more in movies. Now think about that. Originally, Carl Dreyer wanted Lillian Gish, the American iconic silent movie star, to come in and play that part, but they figured the French would go crazy. Having a Danish director and an American actress play the lead of a French heroine would be way too much for them to bear. But what happened after this movie in 1928 was we were coming to the end of like the Jazz Age and the Roaring '20s. And the real glamour gals, the Clara Bows, the Louise Brooks, they started to get real close up, the Jean Harlows with the camera. And in Hollywood, they must have thought to themselves, why in the hell are we wasting these beautiful women by taking these shots from 30 feet away, and every movie is just a wide set? And, you know, why don't we get in here and do the close-ups? Let's see, Claire, say hi, Claire, how are you? Oh, I'm sorry you're not feeling good, Jen. It's hard for me to watch anything of substance, but this one I'll make a point of viewing. Yeah, Claire, do do watch it. Hi, Sergeant Blackrock, because it's considered by film critics and historians one of the top 10 films, and certainly one of the top 5 silent films of all time, just because of its innovative camera work, its bold use of close-ups in it. Let's see, Miss Pedwina says, funny you mentioned that. I pulled out my grandma's book that she gave me called Four Fabulous Faces. High Hollywood Glamour, exactly. Hi, Scottish Sarah. And that's when the movie magazines hit too. Hollywood Star and all the True Star magazine, they all started featuring, instead of scenes of sets of movies, they started featuring individual starlets and stars on the cover and in close-up. Because there was something about society at that time that you never wanted to break the barrier of being too close to somebody. Okay, because remember, before movies. Thank you, Sergeant Blackrock. Before movies, things were on stages. Okay, and there was no such thing on a stage as what? As what? What was there no such thing on stage of? As when you sat in the audience, yeah, there was no such thing as what? A close-up. Okay, so everything was on wide vista vision, the whole thing. So this was something that people had to become comfortable with, this idea that taking this camera in really tight on people. And this is when women especially and men started freaking out about appearance. You had the birth of Max Factor and the makeup. Everybody had the same pancake makeup on in the early days. It didn't much matter if you look like Casper the Ghost. Now it's like, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Yeah, and tutorials on how to look like a star and make up a star. Thank you, Sassy Girl. And this is what Carl Dreyer brought to the world this idea of a close-up and this intimacy for the first time, that we get away from the stage version of watching basically a recreation of a theater show, and we watch something that the camera work for the first time ever begins to be important in a movie. The camera really begins to come into its own in this movie, and this is one of the ways. This is exactly one of the ways that why this movie is so revolutionary, because you look at it and you don't know, but then you look at some of these horrific close-ups, and you look at the fact that Renee Falconetti, who's the star of this movie, her eyes, she never blinks. And she can hold her eyes amazingly in an open position for a lot, and you can probably count on one hand the number of times that she blinks in the movie, because she's supposed to look like she's overwhelmed by the authority figures around her. A mix of being starstruck by so many people who are taking an interest in my life, to the fact that this is really heavy duty stuff going on right here, right now. On stage, Cupcake says, I had to do on stage makeup before, when my daughter was in the Thespian Society. Had to put it on dark and thick. Craig says, geez, Rody, I think that's etched in my chlorine. Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. One of the best lines of Hollywood. But that's all thanks to Carl Dreyer and the passion of Joan of Arc. The violence in the movie. Now, there was also a lot of complaints that Renee Falconetti, the star of the movie, it was really the only significant role that she ever had. She never did another movie again, because it was claimed that the movie broke her spirit and turned her into she had severe mental problems. Okay, and Carl Dreyer took a lot of backlash, because, and even let's see what Roger Ebert said about this when he discussed this movie. Let me see what he said about the way that she was treated here. And Carl Dreyer, the director, had a reputation of just killing his stars to get the most, to get the greatest performance out of them. Let me see if I can find this. See what he says about this. Let's see if I can find this. And I'll read you a few things of what the critics said about this. She had her shaved head. She was the first one that ever shaved her head on a movie. Where in the hell is that? Yeah, after, let's see where this is. Oh yeah, here's what Roger Ebert wrote about her performance. For Falconetti, the performance was an ordeal. Legends from the set tell of Dreyer, the director, forcing her to kneel painfully on stones and then wipe all expression from her face, so that the viewer would read suppressed or inner pain with her. He filmed the same shots again and again and again. He was a very slow, methodical director that would take dozens and dozens of takes until he found that one take and review them that had the exact expression that he wanted. In the meantime, she's being physically debilitated on this movie set, manhandled, carried around, and well, I'm just going to put it out there, physically abused in the making of this movie. She died at a relatively young age down in Argentina. Okay, but she never made a movie again, and she fought severe mental illness. And some claim it was a result of this making this movie. I'm about to fall out, Street. I'm pooped. Okay. Yeah. Hey, Street. How you doing? Some of the most beautiful women from the silver screen in the 40s and 50s. Well, by that time, how you doing, Street Life? By that time, they had perfected how they wanted a woman to look on screen. Okay. And depending on whether it was a male star or female star, they had their standards. Yeah, that's what they say about the star. She continued. She attempted to continue her career with as a producer of comedies during World War II. She escaped from France first to Switzerland, Brazil, and then down to Buenos Aires. But she suffered mental illness and died in Buenos Aires, an apparent suicide by forcing herself on a self-imposed significant diet after being overweight. So she kind of did herself in, but they considered this one of the greatest movies of all time, especially renowned for its cinematography and its close-ups. What also pissed people off when making it a movie was, and think about this, yeah, them Chiefs are good. I know, there's no doubt about it. I tell you, Missy, I'm just as an aside. Yeah, the Ravens and Chiefs were playing. The Chiefs are definitely the cream of the NFL. Don't make any mistake about that. So I'm not surprised about. I'm not shocked about tonight's game. But they spent 6 million francs to build this big monstrosity of a castle, and they ended up filming 80% of the scenes in a little dingy room, and they got really pissed. They built this big concrete poured castle and all this fancy drawbridge gate and all this insanity. And they said later that Dreyer was so stuck on himself for having the close-ups in small scenes that he forgot to take any big scenes in the movie. And think about that for a minute. He didn't. He was so driven by the exquisite beauty of the close-up and all of its horror and drama and tears and agony that he took very few wide angle establishment shots of the scene. Okay, so if you see the movie, you never see the whole plaza where the burning at the stake occurs. You never see the totality, the front of this monstrosity of a castle that they poured out of concrete. It was all wasted money because this guy, yeah, the drawbridge scene was horrible because this guy was so hooked on his cinematography and telling his director to get in there, get that camera 3 inches away, mate, get in there, cry more, slap the star. You're not crying enough, slap her some more. You're not crying enough. Somebody punch her in the back there. Okay, she was physically abused. Okay, yeah, the drawbridge scene. Interesting, you should mention that, Scottish Theron, because at the beginning of, before we did a little background, I was getting a little bit of background on the history of Joan of Arc. And when this was released in the theater, in film, nothing like this had ever been seen. That final scene, there was just over the top violence with the English swinging truncheons on the end of chains and cracking skulls, and the even the church, the Catholic Church, flipped out because of the burning scene at the end. He refused to cut away as the fire consumed more of the body. He still has the camera running into the smoke and the flames and the things being reduced to char, and still the camera is rolling until the body slips down to the ground. And a lot of people had a really big issue with the violence at the end of the violence that happened in the last 10 minutes of the movie. So, but you have to realize there was a lot of hatred for the English, and there was also a lot of hatred for the puppet French that collaborated with them. And as the bishop screamed at the end, the words say below, you just burned a saint at the stake there and things. So check out a movie called Homecoming with Clark Gable and Lana Turner. I think I've seen that movie before. I think that was a great movie. Valley, the Dollar Girls are definitely most attractive. And I'm going to tell you what too, Cyanide Cupcake. And I got something to say to you, honey, as we're on this movie night. You know, when they talk of the Goodfellas and the Sicilianos and the gangs and the mafia and stuff, they have what's called They have what's called made men out there. And we have a tradition down here now, honey, that tonight I'm making you a made woman down here, and I'm gonna enter you into the core of my moderator core here for meritorious service above and beyond the call of duty. So pick up your wrench and roll with it, and welcome to the core, honey. You are the first wrench that I have added in a year on this channel here. So welcome before. If you've not seen this movie, Madowix, it is well worth watching. It's watching this movie is proof that the silent movies have no diminishment in storytelling compared to sound movies and all of that. You might have to post again there, sign. Let's see what. Let's see. Try posting again, honey. Let's see. Try posting again. Yeah, let's see. I got you added as much. Now, okay. Try posting again. Do it one more time. Well, you deserve it. You know, you're always here. Just do that one more time, and you're added to my core of beauties. Just try posting one more time. It takes a while for the wrench to take. Here, it might take a minute or two for it to post, but I'll make sure that YouTube's very slow now at the wrenches, so we'll get it figured out. But congratulations, you're a made woman now here on here. And they've been talking about 15 minutes, taking about 15, 20 minutes. Okay, yeah, it might take a while to show up. It used to be instantaneous, so. You know, you've always had my back in a major way. It doesn't mean that you're an ass kisser. It just means that if there's something to be said about me, you end up saying it on the chat, and I appreciate that. These are very tough times right now. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things at stake right now on YouTube and other places. So yeah, you go to the mats. That's exactly, you have a lot of heart. So. Anybody else want to have anything else on the input of that particular movie? You know a little bit of the backstory. You know a little bit about, if you do watch the film, if you've not seen it for the first time, please take note of the camera angles. Please take note of the close-ups. Take note that there's no makeup used in this movie at all. Take note of how they frame the camera. So the people in authority are always being shot upward, and Joan of Arc is always being shot in a down position, in a subservient position with all that going on. So it's a very interesting movie. Now, yeah, the music. Now, remember this, Becky, that there was probably 50 different scores that were developed for that movie. The movie studios never really got involved in what score to use for the movie. They left that to local scoring at theaters. They might have had a suggested version that you could have some off-the-shelf music to go with that. But for the most part, it would be accompanied by an orchestra in the theater until the big Western Electric cinema speakers were developed that were like 6 feet across and 8 feet high and all that. So, yeah, Cupcake is awesome. It just bothers me that these damn wrenches take so long to show up on here. But I like cyanide Cupcake a lot. As an agnostic, Joan has to be law as an amazing warrior leader. She does, Bill Wells. She does. And I said at the beginning of the thing, how unlikely it is for a peasant woman, girl, 18 years old, that hears voices in her head to get an audience with the King of France and convince the King of France to put his army, what's left of it after bitter battles, the 100-year wars with England, what's left of his scuffed army in the hands of an illiterate peasant. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, let's march into the Pentagon and we got a better idea, right? We'll send our kids into the Pentagon. Hey, I mean, it's almost defies imagination. And then you win a stunning battle, and then unfortunately you're knocked off of your horse and captured in a subsequent battle. You waited. Oh, I waited almost 5 years for the weather, man. I'm patient. That's good. Yeah, we got good mods. We got good mods on this channel, and actually, they're more just honorary. You know, the mods have a great chat that they do over here, and Cupcake's always. If you want to talk about a strong woman and a real presence, and I think of the song, "Don't back down, ooh, and I won't back down." And she's got a great sense of humor too. I am now done. If you've not seen that movie, please do so. Please check it out. Even pay the $1.99 at Amazon or whatever, or click on the version that I have in the description box last week. Hit the English, the closed captioning on it, and see if that works for you. And please watch this movie. It definitely is a landmark. If you think silent movies are boring and nonsensical and really fast motion action, like Keystone Cops or something, that was 1920. This was almost 1930. They'd come a long way in camera and film and all of that. Speaking of weather, how are the fires? They're pretty bad, but the wind is let up, so that's a good thing, Sassy. That is a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah, cyanide cupcake's too weak to put anyone in time. A cyanide cupcake would put somebody on the stake, okay? You know, if I had to pick somebody on Boy to play Catherine the Great or something, right? I'm going to pick Cyanide Cupcake to do that because she'd look you in the eye and just say, "Sayonara, baby." That's it. Now, the next business. I've started the first two movies here, ones that have always been kind of near and dear to my heart because they're seldom seen movies, but they are classics in their own right. Now, hey, Icy, what do you think? Let's throw out some suggestions. I want to just put out there, we're not talking about, when we talk about classic movies, we're not necessarily talking about a movie that's a popular movie or everybody's seen. We're trying to find something that really breaks new ground, either in terms of its storyline, the impact that it had on people, maybe the breakthroughs of cinematography like a Citizen Kane, and the camera moving and the deep focus shots that everything is in focus in the frame as opposed to those bokeh shots where the close-up is sharp and the back is blurred and things. I mean, you know, that's what I'm thinking. We want to discuss, damn focus here. We want to talk about movies. Son of a bitch, I hate this camera. I got to focus this for a second, guys. Hold on, it's driving me crazy here. Give me a second here. We want to find, God, I'd like to just burn this thing at the stake. That's going to be my theme. Hold on a minute. We want to find a movie that really made an impact. Hell now. Okay, there we go. That fixed that. It's going to take a minute. Did that fix that? Let's see if I can get that to focus a little more. Drive me out of my tree. I won't back down. Stay put here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now we got it. There we go. So, what do we want to... Let's think about some possible movies that have made an impact on you. Changed cinema, changed the movie-going experience. Maybe they were controversial and things like that. Birth of a Nation. That's D.W. Griffith's, you know, and it's a very, it's almost like these days, Birth of a Nation is, you know, a lot of people alternatively call that the birth of the KKK. But if you look at Birth of a Nation, of just the first real full-length motion picture in the history of the world, it's pretty damn dramatic, and it's a big technological achievement. But we live in an era where the art the art is secondary to the history now of what's portrayed on the scene. In other words, Gone with the Wind now becomes degraded because, in a historical sense, what Margaret Mitchell wrote, A Tale of the South, and then the opening line, "Those days are gone with the wind." It was just a tale, right? But now it's taken on historical, the slaves and its plantation life and things like that, and so Birth of a Nation. I know this channel. Hey, Waiting for Karma. Yeah, I got this channel too. Yeah, you could put it into current times. Birth of Nations, I believe, was 1915. Somebody can correct me on that. Can somebody double check? D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. Jeannie Dielman is a feminist minimalist classic, one of my favorites, definitely top 10. Jeannie Dielman, Commerce Bruce. Is that a foreign film? I mean, let's make something a little wider just for this first one out of the gate, Bill Ellis. And you guys can throw some ideas out there of movies that you believe broke some kind of new ground with either technical achievement, the best storytelling you ever heard in a movie, the best directing, the best casting that you ever saw in a movie, the best musical scoring. And we can talk about musical scoring as one of the most underappreciated aspects of a motion picture, to which way I tell you, for which I tell you, imagine Gone with the Wind without Max Steiner's score. Imagine if the movie's the same, with that broad, sweeping, do 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 do, and that it just perfectly fits the scope of what you're about to see. Let's see, 1932, Harlem is Heaven. Birdman of Alcatraz, mostly black actresses. So there's one possibility. 1932's Harlem is Heaven, and they did have black theater, African American movies. Some very famous early black movie stars. The original Showboats movie, I think, was 1920 something or 30, and before Paul Robeson even sang that part. Mississippi Burning, The Birdman of Alcatraz. That's a pretty good movie, The Birdman of Alcatraz. I think that's like the 1963 version or something like that. That's a pretty good movie. That's a possibility to see that movie, because again, that's a real close up of somebody's life in confinement. Danny Elfman, one of my favorite movies from cinematography to music is Blade Runner. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have said that. We have gangster movies that were new, movies that ushered in an era of violence. We also have movies that could look at the Hays Code. The Hays Code came in the early 30s because Hollywood was pushing so far with glimpses of nudity and nude swimming scenes in Tarzan movie that things were spinning out of control, and J. Edgar Hoover and Catholic League were going crazy about what was being shown on movies. Yeah, there's many classics, many classics that we can discuss, but we need to pick one for next week. So we have, we could look at one of the early black movies that featured the cast. They did a lot of musical things. With they generally usually featured the blacks in musical numbers and dance routines, and they were always featured in city urbanscapes and things like that. So, hey Dave, So we can throw out some of the movies, but let's make it a movie that not necessarily something that we think is popular, but something that we think is a was a real landmark movie in motion picture history. And I think some of the pre-code movies when things really got racy in 1930, 1932, 1933. That's an interesting because the whole thing shifted around the next year when the Hayes Commission came in and the studios were read to riot act. I'm not picking. I'm all for discovering. To Serve with Love was a great movie. That Wizard of Oz was a lot of technical achievement. Raisin in the Sun was a great movie. To Serve with Love was very groundbreaking movie. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was also a very groundbreaking movie with its theme of having uh, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn's daughter marrying a black physician. And all the discussions of what that entails. A Raisin in the Sun. The Women, I think, is pre-code, and it's an outstanding movie because it only features women in it. It has the great Norma Shearer in it. It was a movie that put Reno on the map as a divorce capital. It's a great classic movie, but I don't want to pick it. I want you guys to be able to pick this particular movie. Let's throw out a few more. Yeah, To Serve with Love is good. I don't know. I know you're going to have to pay a dollar or two to see the movie. The great Sidney Poitier. It has great music in it. Set in Britain and a high school teacher attempting to get to build respect out of a group of rough cut British kids in London. So yeah, Wizard of Oz was one of the first that used the Technicolor cutaway on the Wizard of Oz. The as far as landmark movies, the Wizard of Oz had been done in like 1910, and it's a really rough, goofy looking black and white thing. And this was Frank Baum's creation was brought to much better life in this movie because of the casting of the. This is a movie, in my opinion, The Wizard of Oz, where the casting made the movie. Ray Bolger is the Scarecrow, and right on down the line with the casting with Cora Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West and all that. Witness for the Prosecution. That's a good one. Did any of you ever see Bad Day at Black Rock? Did you ever see that with Spencer Tracy? Where he plays a one-armed investigator in Ernest Borgnine, and that's another possibility. Bad Day at Black Rock was another. Yeah, 1939 was the peak year. Did John Voight do a movie similar to Serve with Love? I'm not really sure. I like the organ scene. Pick something crazy like The Ghost of Mr. Mr. Chicken. A Patch of Blue is good too. That has Sidney Poitier and I can't think of his name. Rod Steiger in that. Casablanca one you haven't. Casablanca's a classic movie. With a good storyline. That's a classic. Wuthering Heights. The Magnificent Ambersons is, um, I think it's, the hell's his name? God, it just went right out of my, Orson Welles. I think Orson Welles' greatest movie is Magnificent Ambersons, showing the demise of a family of wealth through its own greed and stupidity to total financial collapse and stuff. Bad Day at Black Rock, that's a good movie. Justice at Nuremberg is another one. Shelley Winters was in Patch of Blue. So it just depends what you guys thinking here. If you ask me from a classic point of view, there are all some excellent movies that have been put down here. How to Marry a Millionaire with Marilyn Monroe. We want to really try to stick with something that's really considered like a classic. And I think like a movie witness for the prosecution, thing like that. Anna Lucasta with Sammy Davis Jr. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick somebody out here, Night of the Hunter. And I'm going to say, Becky B, you seem to, yeah, the good and the bad and the ugly is an excellent one. But I'm going to let Becky B pick a movie here, and maybe on the side chat she can just name the title because she's obviously a classic movie buff, and I think she has the idea we need something that really provokes deep thought or social change or great change in cinematography or the way that they shot movies. So Becky B, why don't you go ahead, put the movie that you want us to watch, and we'll watch the movie that you suggest this week. We will make that our feature movie that we'll look at. Okay, and we'll have to dig it out and find it. We'll probably have to pay for it and all that, but we'll figure it out. So I was always trying to stick with movies that might be in the public domain, but I'll let you go ahead and why don't you go ahead, Becky? Go ahead and pick the movie for next week, and then we'll watch it and be prepared to talk about that and the things that you think make that a classic. How's that sound? We'll let Becky pick the flick. How about that? How you like them apples, Becky? Electric Light in Blue. That was a cool movie. Let's see. Bill Ellis, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly say you like To Serve with Love. Okay, To Serve with Love is a generally available movie. And it also has a theme that's very interesting in the storyline that you would take an American teacher, put him in the worst London classroom with all the tough guys, and see how he is able to earn the respect and be able to control these and care about these students' lives going forward. So let's okay, so we'll talk about To Sir with Love. If anybody has can find I don't think it'll be in public domain, but I don't think it's going to kill us if we pay $1 or $2 to watch Sidney Poitier. He's always worth watching. Let's watch that movie. Hello, Elmer. Let's watch that movie To Sir with Love because it has a song that became a very popular hit in the 1960s. And Sidney Poitier was really always breaking new grounds in terms of being a black actor in cinema. And he went way out this time in a English classroom. And it has Lulu in it. Oh, Conrack with John Voight. So all right, so that's what we'll do. We'll watch To Sir with Love, and we'll talk about now. As you watch this movie, try to watch it from. Why in the hell doesn't Cupcake have her effing wrench? We'll try this again, third time. Anyway, as you watch this movie, and guys, thumbs up are appreciated tonight. Think of it of how they, not just about the storyline. But think about the casting of the actors in the movie. Think about how they shot the movie. Did they use a lot of camera movement in the movie? Did they use a lot of close-ups? How did they enhance the whole storyline by the use of camera work and the use of lighting? And how about costume design? Is it realistic to, I don't want to call it a ghetto classroom in Britain at that time, but is it real? Is it a realistic portrayal on that? Okay, she's got something there. W. All right, I'm going to copy that. I don't know why your friggin' wrench is so slow to come. Let me go ahead and copy that. Let me see if I can put that down into. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Cheryl. Let me copy this link. Copy link address. I'm going to put that down in the description box. I'm going to go ahead and hit my edit button real quick on this. I'm going to pop this down in the description box. I got Joan of Arc. Let me go ahead and move this to the top. Next week's movie. Put that in there. Paste that and hope that works. Let me put that in there. To serve with love. Okay. Those schoolgirl days. La do do do. If you wanted the moon, I would try to get it for you. To serve with love. See my memory? Crazy, isn't it? I'm old as dirt. Yes, that's what I am. Gotta sit through a commercial to see this. Come on, man. Let me get back to my chat here. Skip ad. So there we go. Are we all in agreement with that? So I think that'll work. Yeah, I thought the Ravens, this will be, this is the Chiefs are the cream of the NFL, man. You better learn to love it. Okay. But I have a feeling the Ravens will be seeing the Chiefs again when it's all said. We'll see if they get a few more tricks up their sleeves. But make no mistake about it. The Chiefs are definitely the cream. They're the top cream. I'll put the Ravens in a number 2 position. Okay, but might see a rematch again. Yeah. Be there tomorrow for sure. Nightbot is blocked. That's what I'm thinking. Loves, thanks you. So I'm working on unblocking that bot. Yeah, I can't even seem to give you these wrenches are stupid in here. So it's in the description box, that link to serve with love. How you doing, Aquarius? Nice to see you, sweetie. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. So that's a movie that I think many of us are familiar with the title of it. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a preview here. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a backgrounder on that. Let's see if we have a little clue what we should watch for when we look at this movie next week. 1967 film. And Rotten Tomatoes gives it an 89. Joan of Arc, The Passion of Joan of Arc, has one of the highest topped out Rotten Tomatoes at 98% on that movie. America populated with troublemakers who were rejected from other schools. He gradually succeeds in getting them to earn his respect. Yes, it has Lulu in it, and critical, let's see what they, critical essays on that. Trying to find something. That's actually an autobiographical movie. Let's see what they say here. Based on the book by E.R. Brathwaite. Duh. Let's see. In 1967, the novel was made into a film, To Serve with Love, starring Sidney Poitier and Lulu. And the film's song became a number one hit. I remember that. I remember that playing all the time on the radio. The setting for the film was changed from post-war London to the swinging 60s. And notwithstanding its success, the author of the book had ambivalent feelings towards it, as he admitted in an interview in 2007. And let's see the criticism of it. Let's see, it was too simplistic a movie. And his writing of it was very simple, that a teacher could so quickly gain the respect of a class. Uh, it says, all that To Sir with Love really achieves is a sordid demonstration of the author's vanity. Nor is his description of specifically racial problems any more discerning. The author shocked when refused social status equal to a Briton with academic the teacher. I don't know. They really tore it up here. That makes it interesting. Yeah, the author. This is interesting. British society, if only. Let me see the author constantly stresses the ease with which black could assimilate into British society if only his color were disregarded. Prejudice against him is unfair, he believes, because of his social accomplishment, not because of his humanity. And he implies, therefore, that prejudice against black people who lack similar cultural habits may be justified. Whoa. Whoa. I don't think that would fly today, right? So we'll look at that. That could be kind of interesting. YouTube wants me to use Chrome. All right, let me look at this then. Yeah, you got to be a Chrome gal. You need me to send you one of my Chrome bikinis here. Let's see if this works now. Try typing again, babe. See if that works. Yeah, it had #1 music exactly. Let's see that again if that works. Try that again. And of course, To Sir with Love is in black and white. It's next to my name. When I hit it, just appears one side chat. Son of a. All right, don't post. Jeez. Cupcake is now a moderator for your channel. Woo! Cupcake, I don't know what it is, honey. Augmented devices might be measuring it. We'll get it figured out. We'll get it figured out on there. No worries. So, okay. I think that's going to be a wrap tonight. We got the interesting discussion of Joan of Arc and the development of the close-up in cinema. And the movement away from the wide-angle shot is the only shot to use in cinematography or film up until that particular time. But the director may have gone too far by making everything too close up and not having enough establishment shots for the scene. He fell in love with his own artistry and lost a little bit of the conveyance of the movie. Should watch Witchfinder General. Well, we'll put it on the list, Joan. We'll think about that. Okay, Witchfinder. I'll have to check that out. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to head out, guys, and probably go live on the other channel a little bit. But I want to thank you guys for being in tonight, depending on who anybody else is live and stuff tonight. So, but I do want to thank you for coming in. An interesting night tonight here on the chat. Great movies. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the wonderful thumbs up. And with that, I bid you all a very good night. To Sir with Love. If you wanted the moon, that do Lulu. All right, everybody.